Okay, you can begin.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Bisu. Good afternoon, colleagues. I am Richard Bertie, and together with Dale Jeffries, we are going to be presenting on Chapter 7, Leadership and Ethics. Getting right into the presentation. One thing I want to say that a lot of the examples we will be given would be from the protective services, okay, and it might be given more than once for emphasis and understanding. All right. Let's get into the presentation. From birth, we all have been a part of groups and teams. For instance, when we were born, we were introduced into our family, right, which we did not choose. As we grew, we entered kindergarten, another type of group. As adults, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, who can remember somebody holding your hand and taking you to the police service or the prisons? All right, we became members of many groups, some of which we still maintain membership today, not so? One would say it is an innate desire of humans to be a part of groups. The obvious question you may ask, what is a group? Okay, I will seek to answer that question. Let us look at the definition of what a group is. A group is considered to be 3 or more people interacting and communicating interpersonally over time in order to reach a goal. Now, there are key words and phrases in that definition, and we will dissect it and look at it as we proceed in our presentation. All right. Right here in our class, we have a good example. We said 3 or more people. We have a good example of Vishal, Raphael, and Ms. McIntosh, who recently formed a group consisting of 3 members. Not so? Not so?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, I want to ask a question. Bobby, what are some of the groups and teams you belong to? And don't tell me, Fene. Bobby. Bobby, Uta Bobby.
Yeah. I belong to the sports club in my community here, All Apache Sports Club, involved in cricket.
All right. And what again? What about the church?
Yeah, I'm also in the church.
All right. Okay, wonderful. All right. Does anyone here consider themselves not to be a part of a group? I don't think so. We will now look at key group dimension. In other words, we want to know why groups exist. As group members, I am sure it will bring some perspectives to us, especially in the area of belongingness. Why do groups exist? Firstly, for purpose. Group exists for different purposes. For instance, it may be to deliver a service, to create a product or result. We have many examples, such as the delivery of education. Not so, Mr. Bisu? Building homes for the less fortunate. We have Habitat for Humanity, okay? To rescue abused animals. We know of Joel and his group. All right? I can literally give you a million reasons today why groups exist. 2, structure. The structure of a group is determined by the manner members relate to each other. Different leadership styles are employed in individual groups. For example, groups may be hierarchical in structure with a leader at the top, like the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, which is led by our commissioner, or even at a station level, okay, which is headed by a sergeant or inspector in most cases, and we have some sergeants. We have an inspector in our class, okay? So you all can identify with this. Or the board of a company, which is usually led by a president or a chief executive officer. Then we have peer groups. These groups are mostly leaderless. The participants share needed roles and responsibilities from time to time, okay? And for example, we have our own groups in our class, okay? In the last lecture, Devendra said we have 4 groups, and our groups, this is why I told Devendra, we don't consider anybody to be a leader, but we are peers, okay? We also have networking groups. These comprise of various agencies and NGOs from the community. For example, a community council group or a neighborhood watch group. Now, I want to tell you something. explain in the community council group. In every police district, there is supposed to be a community council. The community council is a group that is headed by the person, the sergeant or the inspector in charge of the station, and it comprises key stakeholders in every community. For example, we may have people representing the city corporation or borough corporation, CPEP, business owners, TNTech, and you get the idea. And what happened? This group is formed to deal with some of the social issues in whatever district they are located, especially crime. Since it's a police group, they deal especially with crimes. All right? So that is a networking group. Other types of group involved, and we wouldn't get into the into explanation, but you can read more on your own time. Functional groups, horizontal groups, divisional groups, matrix team-based groups. Okay, time. Groups may exist over varying lengths of time. For example, the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. Okay, we don't have any members today in class, our class. This is an ongoing group, whereas like our study groups is a temporal group or a temporary group or a time-limited group. In most instances, for the duration of the study of a particular subject or the course. Now, membership in groups may also be for a specified period of time. Let me explain. Membership and not the group. All right? We go back to the example of the Defense Force. The Defense Force, they recruit people from the public into the army, and they become soldiers. When they reach the age of retirement, they exit the group, okay, but the Defense Force continue, but their membership cease to continue. Okay, another example of a time-limited group is a task force or ad hoc group. Okay, now they are primarily set up to deal with a specific issue. Only yesterday, okay, Mr. Skerrett, the president of the West Indian Cricket Board, announced that he is setting up a task force to look at the state of West Indies and regional cricket. So we have a classic example there. All right, task forces face challenges such as engaging members to be active and motivated. And I think this is because they are a time-limited group. They don't have enough time to get into group development, which I will go into after. Now, in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we have so-called task forces in inverted commas, and the police officers could identify with this. What happens in every division, in a particular district, in a division, there may be a problem of murders. Let's say in Marabella, the line, we have an escalation of murders. What happened? The head of the division, they create a task force to deal with the murders. When the murders are dealt with, what happens? Instead of terminating the group, okay, what happens? The task force continues. And in Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, we have task force going on for years, 20 years, and they don't terminate yet. So this defeats the purpose and the meaning of what is truly a task force. Now, to mention ongoing groups are also called committees. They are also called boards or council. Now, I want to ask a few questions, okay? And feel free to answer, gentlemen. What are the purposes, we dealt with purpose, of some of the groups you may belong to, whether it's a sporting group, a community group, whether it's a work group or a charity group? What are some of the purposes of these groups? Okay? What are the structures of these groups? And we dealt with it. Are these groups hierarchical? Are these groups peer groups? Are these groups networking groups? What are the structures of these groups? What is the duration of these groups? Are they temporal? Are they ongoing or permanent? Okay, and what roles do members assume in these groups? And we will see roles of members as we go along. Now, next, we have group development. Okay, I want you all to look at the picture of these four ladies. Mark, are you there? Okay, Mark,
Yes,
what are your thoughts about these ladies? What do you think happening here?
Well, they all came together for a purpose, which is to prepare a meal.
All right. Anything else you could say about them? What are these faces?
They look very similar. They look like what they call a homogeneous group. They have same ethnicity.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Okay, one can say that there is a harmonious relationship in this group. and they are working in unity. Did this relationship happen overnight? Do you think so, Mark?
Perhaps not.
All right. Okay, perhaps not. And I agree with you, right? I don't think so. All right. What was their journey to reach this stage? Now apply this to your own groups or groups that you may belong to and reflect on your journey. According to Tuckman, there are 4 stages of group development. However, a 5th stage was later added to the model, right? The first stage of group development, and this is the stage that these ladies probably went through to be where they are, all right? Forming. This is the group's initial stage of coming together and team building. Membership recruitment, okay? And affiliation. What information people need. For instance, why am I here? I remember sometime ago I was summoned to the senior soup office, and when you reach there, they didn't tell you why you're coming. When you reach it, they tell you you're a member of some team or some group. Okay, so you have to ask questions and information needs to be given. At this stage, rules are made for things such as meetings. All right, you can't just meet under the mango tree and just have and it's not a coral lime or a river lime. All right, communication, decision making, and so on. Rules are made for these things. Can anyone think of any rules your group made during this stage? Okay, reflect on it. Also, at this stage, the group formulates their vision and mission, which is very important. Okay, you need to have focus. Okay, also goals and objectives, okay, are made during this stage. The next stage is storming, all right, of group development. This is the stage that determines whether the group survives or dies. During the stage, momentum builds. Differences of opinions emerge because of personality. And when we did OB, we looked at we spoke a lot about personality types, okay, and also in psych, okay. Diversity comes to the fore. Cultures, and we just had a little discussion on cultures, all right. Habits, ideas, talents, skills, and so on come to the fore. Styles that may develop during the stage may be adversarial, okay, or collaborative. And I want to, now, sometimes you think adversarial is bad. It's not always bad. I want to give you a good example of adversarial teams. In our own parliament, this is an example. We have the government who's in power on one side, and we have the opposition, okay, on the other side. All right, this is an adversarial team, and they come together and they make it work. Collaborative is like our workplace. We cannot afford to be adversarial in our workplace, so we must collaborate. Norming. In the norming stage, formal structures are established. This is whether the groups will be hierarchical, which I spoke about, peer or networking. So you see the connection, all right? Intimacy and identity are established. It is only natural that when we are in groups, we get closer to some people than others, all right? Identity, who is the clown, who's serious, all right? And okay, let's go ahead. Group culture emerges, how we do things, the values of the group, the understanding of the group, the beliefs of the groups, and so on, all right? Personalities also come to the fore. The 4th stage is performing. Having built a strong foundation in the 3 other stages, the group now begins to get down and get work done and achieve its goals, which is its primary purpose, I believe. Okay, time-limited groups like study groups get project done and prepare for exam. Ongoing groups like the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service may reduce crime. That might be one of their goals. They may establish watch groups, host caravans, and other outreach programs. At this stage, there may be the need to revisit the cycle of development. Okay, this becomes necessary when new members join, of course, when new issues arise and new procedures and goals are introduced. The last and 5th stage, which as I said was later added, is the adjourning stage. It is the closure stage. As indicated, some groups may exist over different time frames. Not so? Short-term groups, which we, okay, must plan for their eventual termination. At this stage, members may experience a sense of loss. Okay, there are mixed emotions like anger and sadness, because what happened? the group is being terminated, and probably you had an affiliation, okay, a closeness to some members, okay, and that is now broken, you will feel angry, you will feel sad. It's only human. All right. This stage should include a celebration or recognition of the group accomplishments. And as I say, whether it's in the Hayate, whether it's by Kora River, get together and have a celebration. All right. So fellas, they could start a plan in July, come in. Okay. Reflection on lessons learned about what was effective and not effective must also be at this stage. The relational leadership model explain what leaders and participants, fellas, I want to underline that, leaders and participants are encouraged to do at this stage of group development, at each stage. Okay, so I explained the stages, and now this model that you are seeing on the board, this is what each person is supposed to do at each stage. All right, I am not going to explain all the stages, but for the sake of time, okay, I want to explain the storming stage. Let's look at it. At the storming stage, both leaders and participants are encouraged to do what? Create a climate in which each person matters and build commitment to the group as a community of practice. You know, we have, it is innate in us to also stereotype. And not because a person may be quiet and then we put them in a corner and you say, okay, they have nothing to contribute. No. Okay, we are encouraged to be ethical and open. We just dealt with ethical conduct. Okay, be patient to give divergent views a full hearing. Be aware when you may be biased in your thinking and or blocking. Last week, I believe it was Audie and Nigel that dealt with the subject knowing yourself. Okay, be aware of your be aware when you are biased or blocking the full participation of another. Handle conflict. Now, conflict is not always bad, and will deal with conflict a little further down. Okay, directly and open. Don't beat around the bush. Don't diddy-dally. All right. Encourage participants to identify their biases again. Revisit the purpose of the group and targets of change. Very important. Very important. Done. Some reasons why groups are forced to adjourn or terminate, and that is the fifth stage, okay, of group development, is one, they are unable to maintain new members where it is necessary to ensure the existence of the group. I go back to Habitat for Humanity. Now, this is a volunteer group, all right? And if they cannot attract new members and the present members and they are aging and they exist the group, what happens? The group will terminate. 2, unable to keep up with issues and needs. 3, unable to perform. All right, they are unable to perform. And factors such as improved technology, believe it or not, may contribute to this. See, we may have a group of matured matured people, right? And they are not too accurate with improved technology, and that will also cause the group to terminate. I will now hand over to Dale, will take us to the next segment of our presentation. Dale? Dale?
Yes, I'm here. Testing 1, 2, 3. Is everyone hearing me?
Go ahead, Dale.
Loud and clear, loud and clear.
Okay, pleasant good afternoon to Mr. Bisu, my fellow classmates. Thank you, Richard, for that didactic introduction on yet such a pertinent topic as this one. And we'll now go on. Slide it, Richard. Slide it. Okay. So now we go to what is called group dynamics. Group dynamics really involve different processes which the group engages in. Now, included in group dynamics is the idea of something called group roles. And based on the screen that you're looking at there right now, there are 2 types of group roles. You have the group building roles and the group task roles. Group building roles, Group building roles do 2 things. It focuses on the relationship among members. And that simply looks at it from this point of view where there is no formal order in group building roles. But from time to time, Based on the relationship, you must revisit certain stages of group development to understand the dynamics. This is especially so when it comes to the storming stage, where all the conflicts and things really are popping up, where the conflict personality, everything pops up. Group building rules also focus on how things must get done. And so in looking at that, I must go back to Bertie's example of the community council group, which is formed in every station district. What happens is when the group focuses on how things are done, it looks at the activities that the members must perform both as individuals and as a group. So for instance, the community council group does it like this. As a group, they would have observed or a concern had reached them concerning some overgrown bush on a vacant lot or a few lots of land. And this was causing some crime, to some increase in crime in the neighborhood. Right? In the area of problem-oriented policing, they call it. But what takes place there is that as a group, they would have gotten the concern or made the observation. But as an individual, the person in that group who is responsible for liaising with the borough or the municipal corporation or wherever it is, they are the ones that will liaise and make arrangements to alleviate the problem. That is how the group building rules focus on how things are done. Let's go now to the group tasks. The group task roles. And the group task roles contains two types of persons. Those who contribute to group progress and also those who inhibit group progress. Now, as you can see, those who contribute to group progress are always available, willing, and hardworking, whereas those who inhibit group progress are lazy, they evade meetings, and they're always unwilling. Now, let's zone in on those who contribute to group progress and look at what they do. They are the ones who focus on accomplishing the purpose of the group, which is, why are we here? What do we want to achieve? What is the goal? That's what they focus on. They also focus on the content of the group discussion. And as compared to those who inhibit group progress, which are split up into 4 types of persons. Those who inhibit group progress. Slide. Right. So those who inhibit group progress are split up into 4 types of people. One, you have the special interest pleader. That is those who have hidden agendas and seeking their own interests. Then 2, you have the blocker. That's those who hamper the goals or progress. And even when given an assignment, they never, ever deliver. They always have an excuse. Then you have the 3rd type, the clown. Never takes the group seriously. Never, ever takes the group seriously. And then you have the 4th one, the non-participant. Present, but does not take part. Present, but does not take part. And my question now, to anyone who would even dare to answer this question, does any of these sound familiar to any of us in our groups? Anyone want to say something?
I think I'm the clown.
Usually the genius, usually the genius in the group always wants to be the clown, yeah? But that is not so. You are the genius. I know that personally. All right, so we're going on to the next slide. Now we go into another area of group dynamics known as group norms. And this area is another very important area for all of us to understand and to know, that group norms refers to the rules and conduct in a group. In other words, when you're talking about rules and conduct, you're talking about how do we resolve conflicts, how do we meet, attendance, and everything that goes with it. In addition, it also looks at what is accepted and what is expected, right? It also looks at what is explicit and what is implicit. Explicit simply means what can be seen by both the members of the group and the public, whereas implicit is what is understood by the members alone. Group norms also are derived from cultural practices. For example, arranging chairs for a meeting. In my group of 2 years, what we used to do when we have our assignments and things to take place, we used to meet by a particular place called aquarium. We will push the bookwork, and then after, if possible, take a lime after. That was part of how, that was our cultural practice in the group. And it also dictates the personality of the group. And that simply means this: the general actions or behavior of the group. In other words, one group, like my group, may be open, flexible, supportive. We use humor, and we view each other as important in some way or the other. Whereas in another group, it might be formal, uptight, guarded, even distrusting, stuffy, and impersonal. Next slide. Think about this slide that you all are looking at for a minute. Dynamics, group dynamics continued in the area of conflict resolution, decision making, and leadership. Slide it. Now, gentlemen, I'm going to ask anyone. Rudy, when you see this slide, what do you think of?
Two fellas fighting over the girls.
No, the clong.
Correct. Audi, what do you think of this slide?
I wish I was party to that activity right there.
Somebody get catch.
So really and truly, and in a true sense of the word, somebody said fight, and somebody is wishing to be part of it. But for all intents and purposes, what we see in there seems to be a conflict, a struggle, or a dispute of some sort. And we're going straight to the word called conflict, which according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary means to be different, opposed or contradicting, to fail to be in agreement or accord. And that is as basic as you can get it. Now, just for a minute here, conflict is not bad. Conflict is not a bad thing based on how it is handled. And so even now, as we look at on the slide, we are seeing three types of conflicts: clash in personalities or personality conflict. And this really is simply how the actions of members in the group conflicting with each other. Remember, we come from different backgrounds, so it's known that we will have a personality conflict. And then you have the role conflict, where in the group, when you are assigned a responsibility, and I'm sure most of us could understand this part, one person is assigned a particular role and the other is assigned a particular role, and what happens is that somebody did not fulfill their responsibility. Won't that cause a conflict? Role conflict. And then there's the ideas conflict, where in Trinidad jargon, everybody thinks they're bright. Nobody wants to give in. So there's a difference of opinions, and that could cause some serious conflict. But however, for every conflict, there's always a resolution. And we have a few here, basic. 1, be civil. Be kind to people. Be understanding. 2, dialogue the matter. Have some deep discussion. One of the worst things you can do in a conflict is say, I don't want to hear nothing. I go and I leave, and that's so. 3, be open to diversity. Include everyone. 4, don't ever take it for granted. Confront every conflict. Don't tell a man in a group, don't worry yourself, we go handle that. Or I go do this aspect of what John do. Confront the conflict. Negotiation. There must be a give and take. In the group, we must have that maturity to have a give and take. And mediation, if possible. Let's say in my group, I give in all the trouble, and I don't want to hear Richard or Bevon or Bobby or Vishal. I don't want to hear them at all. Then they will bring the best mediator, Nigel Medina, and he probably could reach me and tell me, Jeffrey, here's what's going on. You need to do X, Y, or Z. So that's the idea of a third party. And then you have abiding by the group rules. We must be mature people enough to abide by the rules of a group. That's one of the main things that cause conflicts in group, when you don't abide by the group rules. Isn't that so, Mark?
I agree.
Yeah, because you have to abide by the rules. And let's go to the next slide. And from looking at the different ways of resolving a conflict, now you could use all of those ways, or you could just choose a few of those ways that we just looked at in the slide before. But look at the results of those conflicts. We would have been familiar, for those of us who did industrial relations, we are familiar with these three terminologies. but we'll just have to talk about them still here. The first result of a conflict resolution is win-win, where both sides are heard, they give their point of view, and they are able to reach a point and be satisfied with resolution. The next aspect is win-lose, where one side outmaneuvers the other, and this usually ends with resentment and anger. I remember clearly when was a certain negotiation in the police service, it was alleged that the total day of policing came because the executive functionaries did not want to meet, and so this total day of policing could have been, and mark my words, could have been the result. Then there is lose-lose, where both sides use power strategies and don't want to really engage each other, and they get so entrenched in the battle, rigid and hurtful way of doing things that no effective resolution is reached, even if there is an opportunity to make a compromise. And that's sad. Next slide. Right, so let's understand conflict. And for the sake of time, we may not go through all, probably just the first two accordingly. But I like the second one. I want to look at the second one. Understanding conflict, and it shows the advantages and disadvantages of conflict. Number two, it clarifies issues and positions. In other words, with all of the venting coming out, everybody able to say their mind due to diversity and inclusion, you are getting a clearer idea of what is really going on. But guess what? The disadvantage is that it can distract from goal achievement. So much of time and energy is involved in the conflict that sometimes in the group, we could lose sight of the bigger picture, that is to achieve the goal. And having said that, I will now hand you back over to Richard, who would continue in the area of group decision making.
Thank you, Dale. Continuing in our presentation, decision making. Traditional views of making decision within a group. All right, tradition, that's the old time way, simply putting it, within a group. It is guided by the assumption that the group, whichever group you belong to, it has a leader with the authority, and this leader has the authority and responsibility, the sole authority, the sole responsibility of making the final decision. Okay, for example, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service of old. All right, I remember when I came into the police service 33 years ago, this is how it was done. All right, now under the traditional view, when the leader has to make a decision, okay, it is usually done in the following manner. The time to make the decision. In other words, the leader may not have time to hold group meetings or consult with others to make the decision. All right, and that is clear. The leader is representing the group at another meeting. How many of us, we look at the Parliament channel and we see our commissioners, all right, before our joint select committee, and sometimes they're in a meeting like that and they have to make a decision, okay, and it must be done. And finally, the gravity of the decision. Sometimes it's just a trivial issue. You don't need to consult and they make the decision. Now, whenever a positional leader is faced with making an individual decision, the relational leadership model will be used in guiding that process. Okay, I want to repeat that. Whenever the positional leader now is faced with making an individual decision, the relational leadership model will be used in guiding the process. The following must be considered. Okay, this is what he should consider, or she. All right, does the decision support our vision and mission? And we know under group development, vision and mission is created. All right, is it purposeful? What opinions do my group members have about this issue? I want to include everybody. Everybody has an opinion. Will the decision heighten or involve or limit involvement? Okay, and we know this is empowerment when a person feels that they have the responsibility, the authority. Okay, you really believe it will heighten their involvement. Is this the right thing to do? Is it principled? And again, I go back to Devendra and Hussein on ethical, on being ethical in our workplace. Should I slow down making the decision so that others can get involved? Sometimes we too rash, sometimes we too hasty, and we just dive into it and we don't include others. All right. Having considered the above questions and a decision is now made. So you're faced with an issue, you consider these things, you make your decision. All right. Not so? Right. What happens next? The question may be asked, how do the group benefit from these decisions? Simply, okay, firstly, it receives greater acceptance, wouldn't it? When those involved are part of the decision making, all right, everybody, we have a group, most of our groups are 5 or 6. If Bertie alone making the decision on behalf of the group, the rest would feel sidelined and feel slighted, and that would cause resentment. It would cause conflict, as Dale dealt with. Members are empowered. Okay, it goes back again because of that level of authority and responsibility that is given to them. Okay, members learn more effective leadership skills, and this is what this whole relational leadership model concept is about. Members show higher commitment to the team, to the group, okay, to the decision. Now, in the relational leadership model, what I'm trying to say is the leader involves others. Okay, next we want to look at 3 perspectives of decision making. 3 persons gave their perspective, and we want to look at it. Okay, Euclid identifies 4 continuum of decision making, and they are firstly autocratic, where no influence of others. Okay, and I go back to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service of old. I don't know, fellas, how a decision made in the prison service? Is it autocratic? Only autocratic? I don't know. Okay, consultation. This is being collaborative, seeking views and opinions of others. All right, joint decision. Okay, thirdly, joint decision. Equal influence of leaders and key persons. And I'll give an example of this. In a police station, the last place I worked, I was at Shugwanas. Okay, I was the sergeant there. But that the inspector, sorry, that wasn't the only rank. Okay, I had sergeants, corporals, and constables under me. And there were times that, you know, I couldn't afford to get everybody together. What happened? I consulted with my sergeants and we made the decision. Okay, so influence of the leaders were involved there. And then the last method, which is the best one, okay, delegation or participation of the whole group. This involves high influence of others. Okay, in other words, all are involved. Okay, so that is Euclid's perspective of decision making. Now, the second one is, according to Johnson & Johnson, there are 5 methods of decision making. Okay, and I want you to reflect on Euclid and look at Johnson and see if you see any similarities, okay, as we go along. Decision by authority, similar to autocratic. Okay, this is similar to the autocratic, done without discussion. Okay, Luke, you there? Luke, are you there? Mr. Luke?
Yeah, listening.
Luke, you remember before this commissioner came into office, when officers were involved in investigating serious matters, you remember that officers could have gone directly to the DPP for guidance and instructions? You remember that?
Yes, but I still do it.
What instructions were given after when this commissioner came into office?
Well, he formed a legal team.
And you had now to go to
the legal advisor first before I go to the, and then he go to the legal head, and then I go to the DPP. So they create a big stamp.
Thank you. Decision by authority, classic example. All right. Then we have expert decision by expert members. The second point. Again, I want to go to the legal officers. In every division of the police service, we have legal officers. All right. Now, and they are experts because they are lawyers. What happens when you're at the divisional level, at a branch or a section level, and you want advice on probably a serious investigation? You can approach these officers and get their opinions, get their ideas and directions. Okay, so that is expert members. Then we have average members, done through the opinions of others who are not really experts, and consultation. In other words, more involved. Fourthly, decision by authority after discussion. Okay, you may have a discussion with everybody in the group. However, the person at the head now makes the decision. And lastly, which is the best one and similar to Euchre's, okay, majority, which is delegative or participative method is used. Okay, so can you now see, fellas, as I said, the similarities of both models? Okay, we will now look at decision by consensus. Okay, each of the above models that I alluded to in decision making has its own purpose, not so? But the relational leadership model, which we are studying now, would promote consensus. Okay, what is consensus? All right, consensus does not mean that everyone on the team thinks the best possible decision has been reached. It does mean that no one is professionally violated by the decision and that all members will support its implementation. Again, we have keywords and phrases, and as I go along, we will dissect it and bring meaning to it. Okay, now according to Rena, right, who gave this definition, the following guidelines are given to you to reach a consensus, and this is what he says: clearly define the issue facing the team. Don't dilly-dally, don't beat around the bush, confront it. All right, focus on similarities between points. We did set theories. What is intersecting? Okay, we know in most groups we would have factions, we would have sides, everybody have their opinion, but what is the common ground? Okay, what are the similarities? Ensure that there are adequate time for discussion. Again, we don't have to be rash, we don't have to be hasty about making our decision. And fourth, avoid conflict reducing tendencies. And we have in bracket there voting normally brings conflict, it brings sides, and it widens the gap. It widens the gap between factions. All right, 2 dimensions of decision making by consensus. Firstly, we need quality, a need for quality, the importance, accuracy, and standard of the decision. Our standard should always be excellence, all right, when we make a decision. Need for acceptance. Members are involved, they feel included and are committed to the decision. Okay, strategies in consensus now. What are the strategies when we making a decision by consensus? Active listening, not hearing. Only know how we cook ears. We just only hear when we want to hear. But active, not hearing, but listening for understanding. Compromise, which is give and take, as we know. Working collaboratively, seeking the views and opinion of others. All right. Encourage divergent views, inclusiveness. Okay. Differences bring variant talents, skills, opinions, and ideas. We know that. Allowing members to disagree. All right. It encourages what kind of conflict? What kind of conflict, Audie? Creative conflict. Creative conflict. Now, the consequences of not applying consensus. All right. These are the consequences. It erodes trust. All right. It erodes trust when people feel that they are not involved. They feel that something happening in a corner. All right, something secretive, and it erodes trust. It increases negative conflict, which we always want to avoid. Perspective and opinions are not resolved or does not reach a common ground. And lastly, what are the consequences? What the last consequence? Goals set are not met. All right. Why do we set goals? Because we want to achieve goals. All right, and if we do not apply consensus in the decision making, our goals would not be met. Okay, I'll now hand over you again to Dale, who will take us through teamwork. Dale?
Yes, Richard, I'm right here. Thank you very much, Richard, for your edifying continuation on this timely subject. Gentlemen and lady, we are seeing in front of us one of the best illustrations of teamwork, namely a sports team. By the way, the best team in the world, so some people say, Liverpool. They won last year. They got all the championships, or most of them, but again, some leaks this year. But we're hoping that they could scrape up 2 championships before the end of the season. Next slide, Bertie. Let's focus on what teamwork really is based on these definitions. First one, individuals working together towards a common purpose. Note the term working together and look at common purpose also. The other definition, according to Quinn, an enthusiastic set of competent people who have clear roles associated in a common activity, working exclusively in a trusting relationship. Please note competent people, clear roles, common activity, working exclusively, and trusting relationship. Next slide. As the old adage goes, there are strength in numbers, and there is no organization that can achieve its goals by having individuals who work in isolation or alone. Look, case in point, look at this slide in front of you, an example of a surgical team. Contained in that surgical team is the anesthesiologist, is the actual surgeon doing the work, the person who monitors the vitals by way of the machinery, the other person who is handing the surgeon the instruments, as well as another person who is there for background support of some sort. Now, if any one of these persons work in isolation, what they are going to do is to compromise the common purpose, which is to have a successful surgery. Next slide. There is another illustration of a part of an orchestra who perhaps may be doing a piece of a particular symphony. Here you are seeing violinists. So you may say, well, they could work in isolation, but that's not so. For anybody who knows music would know that if any of these choose to take a note in isolation, it could throw off the entire musical symphony. Do we have any? I think we have Romain. Romain, you there?
Yes, I'm right here.
So would you agree that if any of these violinists decide to do their own thing, they can compromise the entire musical piece?
Yes, of course.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's our music expert there, Mr. Roman. Thanks, Mr. Roman. Next slide, Richard. Here is one of my favorites. This is Gordon Ramsay from Hell's Kitchen. And from time to time, he tries to show cooks and other culinary staff how they must work together. Now, he's very inflammatory in how he does it, but somehow he manages to get the job done and shows them what they must do to really deliver on a perfect product. Now, if any of these chefs and cooks and whatever decide, well, Gordon, I'm not doing what you see, I go and do my own thing. Apart from getting some words from him, what they will do, they will not deliver the product, you know, that is really designed to please the participants in the restaurant. So when you look at these two definitions and the setting of these areas, then you'll begin to understand the real necessity and importance of teamwork. So next slide, Richard. Yeah. Now we go to what is known as the benefits of teamwork. And the benefits are simply what you are seeing in front of you. 1, it improves morale. 2, it increases motivation, because the idea of wanting to do something and getting the energy to do it. It increases support, because when we're working together and we're working towards that common purpose, we are also supporting each other. And as we support each other, it lends the idea and so to the other point, which is a clearer idea of common purpose, because everybody now has an idea of what we have to do, what we have to achieve, and how we're going to do it. And then the other one is that teamwork encourages diversity and inclusion, where we want to have that kind of setting where everybody's opinions and ideas are included. Next slide. Now, when you're looking at the benefits of teamwork, we must not forget that successful groups or teams have 2 primary characteristics, which are they are made up of the right people. In other words, you cannot have on a shift in a station a welder. Any officer, Ronald Singh. Ronald, are there? Ronald not there. Okay. Any one of the officers who are there could testify. You could never have a welder on a shift. Don't answer.
I'm here.
Okay. Have you ever seen a welder on a shift in a police station working alongside police officers?
Negative.
So
police officers.
Exactly. So they are made up of the right people. And the other part is that successful groups and teams demonstrate teamwork. For instance, and look, who would have had such a very good record in the courts could testify to this, where in a court setting, the prosecutor must work with the complainant victim, and other witnesses in order to secure a conviction against the alleged offender. However, we must emphasize that before we no. Next slide, Bertie. Right. Before we look at this slide, we must point out that although groups and teams have characteristics of mutual interaction and reciprocal influence, teams have a stronger sense of identity and reciprocal influence with common goals and tasks. In addition, the task interdependence is higher within a team than in a group. And the reason for that could be that teams usually have more distinctive roles than group members. It is more clearer in a team. So as we look at this slide now, I want to be honest. I didn't realize that there was a difference between a group and a team. So I learned that during this presentation here whilst we're doing the research. But let's look at the first one. And for the sake of time, we will not really look at the others. You all will look at it at your time. But the first difference is that in a group, there's a strong, clearly focused leader appointed. Whereas in a team, there is what is called shared leadership responsibilities that exist among all the members. And there and then, you can really see where, because of the shared leadership responsibilities, things will be more clearer in the team as opposed to the group. Next slide, Richard.
No, I'm taking there now, Dale.
Yeah, so I now point you back, send you back over to Richard, who will outline the types of teams.
Thank you, Dale. 3 common types of teams are: 1, functional teams. Okay, these are hierarchical in structure, which we spoke a lot about in my introduction. Okay, that is power by an authority from the top. Okay, whether that authority is called manager, whether that authority is called CEO or president. Okay, and hierarchical team. And we have so many examples. The prison service is considered a hierarchical team. Post that, Mr. Bisu, we have a president at the top. Not so? Okay. Okay. Secondly, we have self-directed teams. Okay. This is a group whose members possesses all the technical skill, knowledge, and skills to accomplish a task or goal, with a certain degree of power delegated to the team from the leader. For example, a hospital where authority is delegated to the surgical team. The same surgical team, the picture that we looked at. Okay, that we know the hospital, they have a head, and he will delegate authority to that surgical team to conduct successful surgeries. All right, so self-directed teams. And hospitals, we have so many. We have pediatrics, we have gynecology, we have so much. Okay, lastly, we have cross-functional teams. Okay, and let me explain a little about cross-functional teams. These are comprised of individuals with a variety of skill sets, all right, and from different departments. So imagine, go back again to the hospital. We have doctors with so many different types of skill sets, and they come from different departments, right, or areas with combined skills that no one person possesses. Right? For example, a good example is a company like Apple Computers, right? They may form a cross-functional team that may consist of software engineers, programmers, and other experts to invent a new product. Okay, so this is how we have so many new things from Apple, because cross-functional team usually comes up with these ideas. All right. Now we want to look now at goal setting within a team. 2 reasons why teams do not achieve success, and they are, all right, they don't have clear goals. All right, and in that part of group development, they probably didn't set clear goals, or in that part they set goals that were unattainable. So firstly, they don't have clear goals or goals that are unattainable. Teams must have clear goals to achieve any degree of success. I believe all of us would agree with that here. Right? The SMART rubric, which was conceived by Peter Drucker, provides the adequate framework for teams to employ when setting goals. Right? And I am certain that by now most of us are aware of this SMART rubric. We did it in public sector management. We did it in business class. All right, business management. All right, so we have Okay, and also we touch on it in industrial relation, right? The SMART rubric, it provides the framework for teams to use to set goals. Audie, are you there? Can you recall at what stage of group development goals are set? Anybody help Audie? All right, it was at the forming stage, guys. Okay, when setting goals, they must be what? Firstly, specific. Goals must be clearly stated. All right. Secondly, it must be measurable. Goals must be quantifiable. All right. And when we say quantifiable, we're speaking about numbers now. 20%, 80%, 100% in the case of the surgical team, they want to have 100% success. Who want to go and get a surgery from a team who want to have 25% success rate? I don't think any one of us. All right. Goals must be attainable. Right. Goals must be realistic and possible to achieve. Okay. In the case of a of Liverpool football team, we know they cannot win every game. Right, so if they set that goal at of winning 80% of the game, that is attainable. Goals must be relevant to the team, right? Goal setting must be aligned with the organization overall strategy, all right? And lastly, goals must be time bound. Goal setting should have a time frame by which the goal should be achieved. Now we may have a manufacturing company that makes a product and they distribute it in the West Indies. Okay, and they may say, all right, we want to go into the North American market within 2 years. That is being time bound. All right. Now we will now look at team.
All right.
Learning.
Before you go on, Bertie, just go back one slide.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to add into this mix here an improvement that has been made to the goal setting an acronym that you have here, which we refer to as SMART. The acronym has been added an extra E and another R. Well, an E and an R. So making an acronym smarter. So goals need to be smarter. And I just want to introduce it to you guys. E is ethical and environmentally sound. And R stands for resourced, meaning that E, we need to be bounded by the values and ethical moral standards of our organization and the society that we are operating in, and therefore we need to be managing our goal setting in relation to ethical values that we share in our society, and we must also be concerned with the environment and the impact that our goals may have on the environment, negative or positive. And then, of course, resourced. To get anything accomplished, you must have the necessary resources to accomplish those goals, because it's all well and good to have smart goals, but if there are no resources to achieve those goals, then you can't it's no longer going to be attainable. So attainability and resourcing go kind of hand in hand. All right, just an addition that Drucker actually made to the model as well. All right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bisu.
I was wondering if you all didn't meet that with Ubi. Ubi usually brings that up.
No, we didn't. Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
All right, no problem.
Okay, moving along. All right. We will now look at team learning. All right. Unlike individual learning, where only you can do it, team learning occurs in many ways and is necessary when the team have a shared responsibility. All right, let's reflect on our own study groups. All right, examples of team learning include through group projects. Think of all the projects that we did together, guys. How much we learned through that. Through experiential settings, and especially like in the task force, right, which is a time limited group. What you learn from there, you could take it to another group, and through study groups. Okay, I remember in the last semester when we did industrial relations and we did the Bobby suggests that we do TCL. I learned so much from that. I know it will take me through my remaining years in the police service. Okay, approaches to team learning, right? Know the preference of the group, fellas. A science group may prefers facts and details. Science group, I want to know about Gordon Ramsay and the kitchen and what kind of detergent you're using to scrub your pot and so on. They want to know facts and details. All right. Through dialogue, continuous probing of everyday experiences, not talking, dialoguing. All right. And through reflection. For example, and reflection, I'll give the example. What happens in the police service? Every year, each division is required to do a post-mortem report of Carnival, highlighting what went right and what went wrong. All right. And from that now, they make recommendations for the next Carnival. All right. It must be noted that there is a difference between dialogue and discussion. And this is the difference, fellas. Members in discussion, members of the group share their own views with minimal attempts at true understanding. When we go by Cora River, right, we just babbling on. That is discussion. But whilst the dialogue now is built in the process of reflection, deep thinking, it involves thinking together. All right, so we get the difference there between dialogue and discussion. So most of them discussions we have in, they are not dialogue, fellas. Right. Leadership implications from a team perspective. Now, leadership in team settings, okay, leaders in team settings, what are they? Leaders are servers, leaders are supporters, leaders are partners, leaders are providers, facilitators, and open to others. Leaders don't lock themselves in our office, all right, and they're not accessible to anybody, right? Whichever station I work in, I always have my door open. I want to say open, not the lock over. I open it and I put something a thing, right? You must be accessible people. You must be there for them. Okay. Leaders are what? Both participants and leaders in teams spend time on reflection on what went right and what went wrong. And too much time we spend time on what went wrong. Okay, so much lessons we can learn what went right for the next project, for the next team that we may enter in. Team leadership. Team leadership. The relationship leadership model emphasizes team performance and team development. Team performance includes the following: accomplishing the group's goals, right? Which are set against the SMART rubric, which we just dealt with. Making decisions and plans according to the relational leadership model, and we touched on 3 areas of decision making: Euchre, and we had Johnson & Johnson, we had consensus, right? And solving problems and achieving results, all right, which is very important, vital to the existence of the group, achieving results and solving problems through consensus. All right, that takes me to the end. I'll now turn you over to Dale, who will take us to the end of the discussion. Dale?
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, thank you, Richard, for your insightful contribution on this topic of teams and groups. Right, so now we reach the part, what is known as team development. Team development. And team development is what we are seeing on the board on the PowerPoint slide right now. It includes the following. In order to develop your team, you must establish effective relationships. 2, you must create an environment in which individuals are valued, are appreciated, are recognized. And 3, you must facilitate a high degree of cohesiveness within the team. That is the idea of blending and working together. When we do this, the results of teamwork would be as follows. Productivity. Is it strange? Is it a surprise that productivity comes first? Productivity would be one of the results. The other result would be innovation. Doing something before, but in a different way to get a different result. That's innovation. Creativity. In the process of all of this teamwork, we are learning new ways, or we are doing something unique that we never did before. And also, another result is informed decision making, which means everyone knows about it and the decision is based on everyone. Then we'll have quality delivery in our teamwork, because whatever we are going behind, the delivery of it, the output will be of quality. We would also have efficient problem solving. It will be timely. And then our use of resources would be increased. Our human resource aspect, everybody involved, that will be increased. Next slide. Before we look at that slide, just leave it right there, Richard. I must say, or we must say, that teams do fail. And we have seen it often, whether it is in sports and music, whether even in the police station, at times the team fail. And it is no wonder that in the police manpower audit, one of the things that was highlighted was poor leadership. The reason why the TTPS as a group team fail, whether at the highest level or the lowest level, is because of poor leadership. And poor leadership occurs when leaders see themselves as big shots, commanders, larger-than-life characters, bosses, as opposed to being seen as a partner, as a supporter, as a provider, even as a facilitator, as a mentor. And so when we look at that, then we can now understand the characteristics of team leadership. The characteristics of team leadership, where, as opposed to the other type, one, it is clear, one of the characteristics are clear, elevating goals. In other words, the group believes the goal is worthwhile and it is clear to tell the objectives that have to be met. And I particularly like the other one, results-driven structure. In that group, in that team, the structure of it is for results. How much of us, when we are part of groups and teams, do we really sit down and structure our team and our group in a way for results? I could remember at one point in Costard when we were doing our project for principles of management or organizational behavior, how the group of which I'm part of, how we structured everything. And even for those subjects, how we were able to do well because of how we structured, because we believed in being results driven, right? So let's go to the next slide, Richard. Well, for the sake of time, we can't go through all of these, but we'll go to this slide here and look at these. Apart from the characteristics of team leadership, there are 4 components necessary to establishing a team. 1, the task structure. The team understanding its task, and they are able to find some meaning in it. And they are able to accomplish the task because they are given the autonomy to do so. The second component is group boundaries, where you want to have the team at a right size, not too big, not too small. This team must be diverse, and it must also have sufficient knowledge and information and interpersonal skills. And all of these things working together to establish a team. Then the norms, the behavior of the team must be set in a particular way as well, because they cannot have an indisciplined team and expecting to get results in the right way. And the fourth one is authority. In the team, there must be flexibility rather than rigidity or the rigid use of authority by the leader. And so what this will do is when you have that flexibility, it will instill what is called open debate, open engagement. And it will cause each person to get a sense of empowerment and trust, even though the system has a degree of command, but it will have a system where we can all talk. And from doing that, we all get empowerment. Next slide, Bertie. So before we have these reflective questions, go back to the slide, Bertie. In successful teams, both leaders and team members pay attention to the internal and external demands and issues. It is only when the group is stuck and unable to move forward, or when some sort of internal conflict occurs, which the team may not be able to resolve, the leader could intervene. However, leaders should know when to step aside and to allow the team to take on the responsibilities and tasks in resolving matters. And I have seen this many times on a shift in station, you know, where where the sergeant would not intervene. He would allow the corporal, you know, to be able to work with the team and make a decision. Unless it's something that wants for him to intervene, he would not intervene. Next slide, Richard. So having considered this topic, as we reflect now, I would like to ask, or we would like to ask, are you part of a group or a team? Or if so, are you part of both a group and a team? I'm sure you all know now that you all are part of groups and teams. If so, how is conflict managed? What are the dynamics of that group? Did your group ever come to a premature end in the group development stage? Anyone? As a matter of fact, I challenge anyone right now here to say if you are still part of the group that you would have started off with in Custard as your study group. Anyone?
Yeah, I am still part of that.
Still part.
Okay,
General group.
Okay.
Still part of the original group.
Still part of the original group, right?
Yes, same here.
All right, great. So then that means that in all of these groups, there was some level of group development that caused all groups to still remain together. And for that, I commend you all. Have any one of us ever led a team? I'm sure we have. As we go back to our different workplaces, I would have heard some of you leading teams when we went back due to the call of COVID, and all of us reported back to duty. I and all myself led a team. What are the characteristics of the team? These are real questions to ask. What are the characteristics of the team you are involved in? How was it? Class, are there any other questions before we end? Any other questions you all may want to know about group development, group dynamics, team discussions, anything at all? Not sports. We'll do that another time. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, thank you, Mr. Bisu, for allowing myself and Richard this opportunity to present on such a timely topic. Thank you for the interactions of the entire class. We greatly appreciate it. And good luck to those who are going to continue in their presentations in time to come. Thank you.
All right, if there are no questions, I will pause the recording.
Yep. I can stop